Open is coming. You know the dates, and if you're someone who's worried conditioning is holding you back, then we have the answer. The Sentinel Training 200 Plus Machine Conditioning Workouts ebook. Take the guesswork out of your conditioning pieces with a one-time payment of $40. That's less than 20 cents per workout. Choose between single implement workouts utilizing a fan bike, rower, ski erg, bike erg, and running, or multi-implement mixed machine workouts. You can't put a price on fitness, but we can put a price on improving yours. The Sentinel Training 200 Plus Machine Conditioning Workouts ebook. Upgrade your engine now at trainsentinel.com.
Did that come out really weird your end or just my end? There's something weird going on with my roadcaster. Vellner's on the way. If you can tell me if that sounded weird. Because it sounded messed up on my one. Why would it be doing that? Nothing weird coming out. Yeah, okay. It's weird. There's something wrong. And I don't know what's wrong. If I sound okay, tell me I sound okay. If I don't, tell me I don't. Pat's looking extra pale today. Yeah, he's not actually here yet. Sousa sent me. Sousa sent us. Sousa. Sousa. Wow, this is actually quite harsh to know. Quite harsh. Sousa. Yep, Sousa. Sousa's great. Thank you, Sousa. I sound okay. All right. I don't know. Shit, I'm not going to be able to hear Pat, though. Probably. What should I do here now? What did I do differently this time? Nothing. That's all plugged in. Oh. I fixed something. And here's Pat.
What's up?
Car. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Wow, you look great. You look like you're shooting for some kind of country husband magazine.
Yeah. Trying to get a new job.
Can you turn your phone horizontally? We get rid of the black little borders there. That's probably awkward for you, though, is it?
Sure. We'll see. Might not be able to use the steering wheel, but we'll find a solution.
That's a nice coat, man.
Thanks. It was my birthday present.
Oh, when was your birthday?
July. That's why I didn't get to wear it. I didn't get to wear it till just recently.
That's fair. How you moved house?
Yeah, kind of still doing it. So
is this a new build? Is this like a new house that hasn't been lived in before?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been building for a while. We kind of I don't know. I mean, all in it's probably been between 2 and 3 years. But like from planning phase, but we moved across the country right after semifinals. Sold our house that weekend and then moved east. And we've been living with my wife's family, her parents, since then, basically. And like just to be here while the build's going on, because our build's like not that far from where they live. So yeah, the last like sort of almost the last 5 months or so, we've just been, living out of suitcases and getting ready for the big move. So we finally finished like last week, I guess, Saturday of last week. So we've been sleeping in it for about a week now, I think.
Cool.
But nonstop jobs. I feel like it's suddenly every day it's suddenly 2 a.m. and you're still building something, or you think you can get one more thing done. And
yeah. Or you think something's going to take you 20 minutes. And then it's like 4 hours later.
Every job just leads to another job, right? Like you start a task and then you're like, oh, and then now I can do this and now whatever. And like you build a shelf and now I can move these boxes into it and whatever. So it's
I convinced myself yesterday that I had like ADD because I was doing one thing and then found myself sweeping the floor like inexplicably. and then found myself going for the dustpan to pick up the dust, but starting something else. And I was like, shit, have I got ADD? Is this what this is? It's like
There's
a
a
late
great
diagnosis.
there's a great sitcom scene, like old show called Malcolm in the Middle, where the dad is doing
Oh, yeah.
he's trying to fix a light bulb or something, and then like he has to go to the garage to get the light bulb, and then the workbench is creaky, so he goes to get a screwdriver to fix the workbench, but then like the screwdriver's broken or something, so he goes to get in the car to buy a new screwdriver, and the car is making a noise, and suddenly he's like fixing the car, and his wife's like, "What the
Yeah.
hell are you doing? You're supposed to fix the light." And he says, what do you think I'm trying to do?"
Yeah, that was me.
I think my
Like,
wife's more like that. I'm very much more like, if I sink my teeth into something, I want to finish that job and then move
yeah,
to another job. So it's like she's good at, I emptied the whole container. I brought every box into the house, bring the things. Okay, what boxes go to what rooms? I'm going to get everything into those rooms, and then I want to open all those boxes. So like I want to bring all the things from point A to point B, then open them. Whereas she'll like bring a box into the kitchen, one box, then open it, and then want to unpack it into the cupboards, which is like great. That needs to be done, but so we split it up. Like I'm just gonna shuttle boxes. So you just stand here, open boxes, put them away.
yeah,
I'm gonna keep bringing you boxes. Um, and so the first 2 days of the move, like I did nothing but just lift heavy boxes and carry them up and down stairs, and I was a wreck. Like after 48 hours of that, I was like, I had a hamstring strain. I was like, I'm in fucking bad shape. And she was like mentally defeated because she's like, I feel like we haven't done anything. Because I feel like all I do is sit all day and empty boxes. And then at the end of the day, there's just as many boxes in front of me as there
yeah,
was at the start. Because every time she empties one, I take it away and I replace it with a new full box. Meanwhile, like I'm seeing the container get more and more empty, and I'm seeing like, okay, oh, these rooms, like, so I'm seeing the progress, but I'm just getting pummeled, and she's seeing no progress, and she's just like, fuck, I don't know, like, so it was 2 days of tough, and then once that was empty and like everything was in the house, it's been going pretty smooth. It's like then the floor just gets more and more clear, and you can start to see the house again under all the boxes, and um but Michelle's parents were taking care of the kids for a couple days during the day so we could just blitz it, which was super helpful. And everybody's there and we're back in a routine. Everybody's rocking and rolling just in time for my wife goes away to work up north for like 2.5 weeks, she leaves Saturday morning, I think. So by the
is
end of
that
this week,
solo parenting for you for 2 weeks then?
yeah. So by the end of this week, we better be in a real good place.
You
Yeah.
can get those the lifters, the movers have those like backstrap things for carrying
Mhm.
fridges and stuff. You should get like your kids those and just be like, right guys, let's go. We've
Man,
got 2 weeks.
I want everything built and done and whatever. We're close. Like there's a couple things that a big garage organizer got delivered today. I think our bed frame, we've been sleeping with our mattress on the floor. Our bed frame gets delivered today. We have like a couch tomorrow maybe. And then after that, it's it. I got to build one set of shelves tonight for the pantry. And then, I mean, dare I say
It looks great. The gym
dare
looks
I say we're
absolutely
there.
fucking terrible, but the rest of the house was really taking
So
shape. The
you know what
last
happened too is the gym stuff. I was meant to do that like before we moved in. um I had somebody like O'Keefe came up, he was going to come help me build the gym. Like the cleaners were still finishing the house, and we're like, great, we got like, let's just take a full day, let's build it, whatever. The delivery was supposed to come on like the Thursday or Friday. It was supposed to come Thursday. We planned to build Friday. It didn't come till Friday afternoon, and then the flooring didn't make it. So
oh
we were kind of like, fuck, like you kind of need the flooring to start. So I feel like of all the pieces to be
yeah.
like to be delayed, that was the worst one. So now the flooring's actually not supposed to arrive today. So we basically
Oh
like
man.
we had everything set up and ready to rock and had the space clear to lay the flooring and then build everything. And then we're like, we might as well do something. So he helped us build a bunch of other stuff in the house, but we built the uprights and all like the big stuff on the rig, but like all the horizontal pieces and the organizers and the shelving and all the stuff is like I can't do that until the flooring's down, or else it's just going to make the rig really heavy and I'm not going to be able to lift it to slide the flooring
Yeah.
under. So I was like, it's kind of bare bones right now. And I just left everything in boxes and shoveled it in the corner until the flooring shows up. Then I got to move it all to the other side of the garage, lift up
It
the
sounds
rig,
like you
slide
don't
the
need to be
flooring under.
training though when you're doing all this. So at least you're
Yeah.
busy.
Oh
Like,
man.
yeah.
Actually, I'm exercising at least. I don't know
Yeah.
about training, but
We because
So
we
it's been good.
did.
That'll be the next step. Hopefully by this end of this weekend, I can have that. If the flooring arrives today, I can probably have that good by the weekend.
Oh, that'd be good. Good progress.
We'll
We
see.
did. We kind of renovated our. I don't know what you call it, a sitting room, a living room.
Mhm.
And I kind of watched your stories last night. You kind of went through the rooms, and I was like, first I was like, man, that's a fucking nice fireplace, and I was like, that's a real nice. Like I was just admiring all the new shit, like,
Thank
and
you.
then we did up ours, and I was like, you have stuff from the room, so we like put in a carpet, so everything had to be out of the room.
Right.
So you're kind of walking around the kitchen, like dodging bits of furniture that aren't usually in the kitchen. And then you've also got 3 fucking kids dodging shit around the kitchen, and there's just books everywhere and all this. And this afternoon, carpet was finished. As soon as the carpet was finished, we put up the tree, decorating the tree. I was like, right, we need to get some of this shit out of the kitchen because I'm starting to get anxiety with all the furniture that's in here. And then my wife's on the phone to her mom, and I was like carrying in a bookshelf, putting it up, started putting books back on top of it. And then just as I was finished, she hangs up the phone and goes, is that safe there? Is that going to fall over? And I was like, I mean, if they climb on it, it might. Then she's like, we can't leave it there then. I was like, fuck's sake. So I just had to start taking all the books back off. She's like, well, if you asked, that would save you 30 minutes. If you asked,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have done that job.
I'm like that too, though. I built like a something in the kitchen the other day that Michelle just brought home. She was at IKEA, bought a bunch of stuff, and so I just start building shit because I want the boxes out of there. I'm like, we just got the kitchen clean. A bunch more shit shows up. I'm like, hey, look, I will build it and put it away. Like I make that my number one priority, and then we can put stuff on it, and then it's more stuff away. Like awesome, especially organizers, things like that. Like I just start building. I'm opening boxes. I'm building it. I want these boxes out of here.
Yeah.
And again, like Michelle's a little more intentional about like, oh, don't empty this box yet because it's gonna go in this thing that's not there yet or whatever. Or I got to figure out where I want to put it before we open it. And we're like upstairs was like this banquette was like covered in like 20 boxes. I'm like, there's bookshelves here, and I'm seeing 3 boxes full of books. Like I'm just gonna put books in the bookshelf, and if we want to reorder them later, we can just do that on a Sunday where we got nothing to do. But for now, I don't care if they're in alphabetical order or if they're color coded. Like I could care less. Like I just need them. I need all these boxes out of here because that's what's cluttering the space. But yeah, I did it with like a dish rack or something last night. Built it, and she was like, "Oh, I was gonna return that." And you're like, well, fuck, now I gotta like take it apart, put all the pieces back, box it back up so she can return it. I'm like, I didn't. She's like, you should ask. I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right, but I've just been like, I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone here. I need to like, if there's a box in front of me, it's gonna be built in like the next hour. That's just what I'm doing. But
I remember
we're the same right now though with that. Like the like child safety, it's kind of breaking our hearts a little bit because we got to put some baby gates up for the stairs. And like it's just like, and it's a brand new house, right? You're like, oh, this is a beautiful staircase, and these walls are like brand new, and we got to punch some holes in them to put a baby gate up. That's gonna be up for 2 years, and then we're gonna live in this house with holes in the wall for the next 20. And we're like, and I'm trying to think about, is there any way we don't have to do this? And
there
like,
actually isn't. That's the honest truth.
I know.
I mean,
that's why
if
we're like,
if
it's
there's a
also
least
like
favorite kid, you can just like let them fall down the stairs. Look, see, you can't do that.
yeah, put my 3-year-old in charge of it. Make sure that he doesn't fall down. It's like, yeah, that's reliable, hey. So
yeah, we had a stair gate up, took it down because the middle kid is old enough now to, within reason, go up and down the stairs, but the youngest isn't walking or crawling yet, so we're kind of fine. But I'm looking at the damage on the wall from the last stair gate, and I'm like, I'm not fixing it. Like, there's literally no point. It's just going to be redone when I put up.
Not if you got another one coming that's going to go right back up.
No, there's no point.
Save yourself the work. Take that time you would spend doing that and do something else. Anything else.
So you got back from Rogue and went straight to doing that?
Pretty much. I want to say we got back.
Did you travel around a little bit, right? Like you kind of a small bit after.
Yeah, I had a sponsor activation in London, so we spent a couple days in London, and then we went to Iceland on the way back. We had a stopover at Iceland, and like Iceland Air has a deal where you can extend your stopover for up to 4 days, and just like it just counts as a stopover. So we did that and spent a little time, like went and saw Annie and Fred and toured around, rented a car, just drove around Iceland. It was pretty cool. But It was a long trip. It was a long trip to be away with both kids, living out of bags. So we were happy to be home. But yeah, it was right back to, we got back, popped into the house. It was supposed to be done when we got back. And there was still a couple things like there always is, like our like bathroom glass door was delivered and it was broken. And so they're like, yeah, we got to wait for one of those. Oh, there's the fireplace, the trim that's supposed to go around it is on back order. And they're like, we got to wait for that. And so there's a couple things that are just, as it comes in, they're waiting for pieces to come in. And then they're like, one weekend we'll just pop in and do like 4 jobs and then be done.
Yeah.
And you live in it for a week and then you're like, oh, you notice little things. So when they come to do that stuff, we're going to get them to tidy up a few things. But they had a blitz day. We got back maybe on like the Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, they just hammered out the last couple things they needed to do. And then the cleaners came on the weekend and we were moved in. So when we got back, we were basically packing up our house and moving everything we had into the garage. And then the next bunch of days was moving into the house. So it's been fun. It's been cool. And like the house is now, it's awesome because it's in a good spot. It's like, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's fun to spend time on a project like that that's been years and like see it realized. It's pretty cool. It's been a lot of work. Like building a house is a gong show at the best of times, but it's been very cool. And it's neat now to be in it and be in before Christmas too, and be able to
Yeah.
we did the same. We put our tree up yesterday, and we're like starting to decorate, and then like Michelle's pissed because she's gonna decorate and then leave. And so I'm probably gonna do the outside lights today or tomorrow, and yeah, it's cool.
What's that thing oh fuck, I can't remember what it is. It was something about planting the tree whose shade you'll never sit in. So that's Michelle heading off after decorating the house. Be like, there, I'm done. All right, see you guys. Back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When you were at Rogue, I'm curious. So how do you feel it went? Like after Rogue, were you like, oh, that was great? Or were you like, well, that didn't go as expected? Or like what was your kind of takeaway from it, like personally?
That was a disappointing competition for me. I didn't perform very well, I would say.
Were you expecting to going in, or did you know it was going to be a struggle?
I would say I was expecting to do better than I did. I just feel like I was missing something. I didn't have the normal jump that I should have had, I think. And I think maybe it was a bit of we danced around some preparation a little bit because of just some injuries post games and stuff like that. And so maybe that was just made more of an impact than I thought it would have. That like I wasn't as prepared for certain things as I maybe should have been or normally would be because I just hadn't been doing as much of it to try to heal up. But yeah, I don't know. That's like best I can figure. It was like I didn't feel bad in training. I may have been a little burnt out. It was a long year, and I've just had a lot on my plate too, like with this build and the move and the everything. Like maybe I was a little burnt out. I don't have a great explanation for it. I certainly didn't feel like myself or feel like I showed up in the way I normally would have. So yeah, I don't know. That sucks. That's the kind of, it was a forgettable competition for me. It was the one that you want to move on quickly from.
After it's over, are you like, because just thinking of the prize money at Rogue, are you like, oh, I'm not getting that new TV now? Like when you're finished.
I mean, look, I never try to budget prize money in my like daily living, right? That should all be bonus. But for sure, I think had we made a ton of money at Rogue, our furniture budget might look a little different. Christmas might look a little different, but probably not. Also,
sorry,
I'd say we're exceedingly boring people. Like probably it wouldn't. It would look like me topping up like my RSPs and whatever. Like it's we're not generally very fancy people. So
yeah, you would have had a yacht in your driveway or something.
No, exactly.
Was it like, so obviously Brent before Rogue came out and said, oh, I'm retiring, like Rogue's gonna be my last competition and stuff, and like does that put your own I don't want to say mortality, I'm trying to think like career mortality into perspective when you hear someone who, like, I know with my dad, whenever someone that's around his age dies, he's like, oh, that's someone from my stable. And it's like, it really puts things into perspective for him. So when Brent is retiring, are you like, oh shit, like I kind of thought we were going to keep going for another while?
No, like I mean, not just Brent though. Like everybody, that every time someone retires now, I look and like half the time they're younger than I was, than I am, and I'm like, oh man. Or like Katrin just recently too. It's like, there's not a lot of them left from my cohort or my generation. There's only a few, and so it's like it's a sign of shift, obviously. Uh, and I don't know. I mean, I think that you have to just kind of hope that it's the right decision for those people, and I understand it. Like, and I feel like every every week I have thoughts of like, oh man, I could not do this anymore. Like it's not the most comfortable gig in the world, day in, day out. And so yeah, I mean, I think that there's always thoughts of like, yeah, how many more should I try to do or whatever. And I think particularly when events don't go very well, like that was, I think, the biggest thing after Rogue was I was just like, that wasn't a good representation, and that's not the kind of product I want to put out on the floor. Like if I'm gonna compete like that, then I'll retire. And I don't think it was a good example of what I can do. Um, and the like last season as a whole was like my best year ever. So I don't think there's like any reason to panic. Like I'm not like making knee-jerk decisions based off one competition's performance. I've had a lot of good outings and not a lot of bad ones. So you just have to kind of take your lumps and be like, I wasn't a winner this weekend, and that's fine. Take that back home and do what you will. But I think that, you know, it's hard not to think about it when you see people retire, especially when you see people retire and then they just like. It was funny talking to Brent in the back a little bit during Rogue, because it's just, we go do that log muscle up workout. He does pretty well. He finishes and he's like, we sit in the locker room and he says, "Well, not a bad way to end my thruster career." And I was just like, man, this fucking guy doesn't ever have to do thrusters again. And you're just like, yeah, that's got to feel pretty good, I guess. So,
Yeah.
uh, it's all in fun,
There's
but
probably the flip for him though as well, like where he has a really good competition at Rogue and he's like, yeah, maybe I should have waited. Maybe I should have done like
yeah. And I mean,
it's
overall, again, like this was maybe one of his best years as a whole that he's ever had in his career. But again, I think that it's hard to, you don't want to get greedy. Like, I think it's easy to do that and say like, oh yeah, I'm on a high and like, let's just ride it out. And you never know, like sport ebbs and flows, like you never know what's happening next. And it takes a lot out of you to do that, right? Like I have no doubt that for him to perform at the level he did all year, it took a tremendous level of commitment. And he's got a young family too, and things going on in his life. I think that's not free. So that could just be like, hey, maybe a decision that his family made at the start of the year saying, hey, look, like this is going to be one more. We're going to push really hard. It's going to be a heavy commitment from my partner all year, but then it's going to be over. And
yeah.
like, so like it could be that. And then that leads to, oh, wow, I had more time to commit to this and it was a great year. But like the other half of that, like your support team is underwater, and like that was the deal they made for 1 year or something like that. And then so it's you never know, you can't know behind the scenes what people are doing and how it's affecting them and the people around them. So that's what I mean, you have to just have some faith that when people make those decisions, that was like the right thing for them to do. And I think nobody makes that lightly, especially competitors that have been doing it for as long and as high a level as like a Brent or a Katrin or people like that. Like when they decide it's time to walk away, like you have to know that that's not an easy decision. So they spent a lot of time working on it.
Do you think if you were to retire, would you do it so you had there's a few different versions over the last while. You had Noah that kind of said it before his season started, I think, that, oh, this is going to be my last season. And then you had Brent who, coming up to his last event, was saying, after this, I'm done. And you have Katrin who, like, waits until there's kind of nothing happening and says, I've retired now. And then you also have some people who just, like, don't sign up for the open or just like, just quietly disappear and don't say anything. Have you thought about like what type of retirement you would have if you were to retire?
I haven't. I haven't really, and I don't. I think that's what tells me I'm not really thinking too hard about retirement. I also worry that I think if you think too much about it, you might like what you're seeing, and it starts sounding a little good, But um, I don't know. I don't know. I think everybody's personality is a little different, and maybe you just what works for you. I've like talked about it a bit with my wife before, and she's like, her thought is like you should announce early, because it just lets you like not victory lap it like you don't care, but like go it's and I think for even people fans who've supported you for years, it's like it lets them know like, hey, this might be your last chance to watch me compete, or if you're there watching, just know like this is the last time, whatever. And it's sort of like a signal to everybody that supported you that like, yeah, it's coming to an end, and you get to enjoy it in a maybe a little bit of a different way. And I think there's something to that. Like that's kind of what Noah did, and then I think he didn't really stop competing. So but I don't know. I think that there's something to that, that maybe that might be more of the route I go. And I think that's kind of what Brent did too, right? I think there's something valuable about saying like, hey, this is going to be it.
Yeah. I guess it would have been harder for people to understand why he was crying on the floor had he not said, this is my last competition. If he's then
Yeah.
crying at Rogue, people are like, geez, Brent like really is struggling at this event. Like he's not. And then he retires afterwards like, oh, right, he knew.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think it's not, and I don't know, not to be like, oh, like it's not a storytelling thing, but I think it is just, there's a lot of moments of our careers where you don't really smell the flowers. Like you don't sit back and enjoy it because you have to be pretty focused, and the most important event is the next one, and you're constantly just like in this slow trudge, not even just within a competition, but like within years. And then you feel like you almost never look up. So I think it's a good chance to be like, okay, I'm gonna look up now, and then do that for like a year. And then I don't know, I think it's like you maybe give yourself a chance to compete more free, and feel like, you know, come hell or high water, it's the end. So it doesn't matter, good or bad. You're just like roll with it.
Yeah. So, well, what I'm taking from that is you're not going anywhere now anyway. So we can continue. It's like, ironically, Fitz says we don't need no more. I don't need more heartbreak, enough retirement talk. Yeah. So you're continuing. That's all that matters.
That's the
Really,
problem. Every year when somebody retires, I'm like, oh, I can't retire now.
I don't want to steal their thunder or have mine
Yeah.
stolen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be like at the end line of someone else's retirement article where it's like, and Pat Vellner also retired.
Yeah.
Like, with obviously the Rogue is over, and then we have Wodapalooza Dubai is next week or this weekend, and FitFest. You were at FitFest last year, obviously. And then Wodapalooza is in January. You're doing team at Wodapalooza with Jason and Jeff.
Yeah,
that's right, isn't it? And you've basically just replaced Brent with another kind of tall. That's about the only similarity they have. They're both tall. So he's taking Brent.
He was the other guy on the podium at Rogue, so we were like, yeah,
we'll fair. Makes sense. Are you doing individual as well there, or just team?
I am doing both, yeah.
Wow. Hey, God, you're a glutton for punishment. Have you not learned your lesson yet?
Truth be told, I'd rather do that than stand in a booth.
Yeah, fair.
If I'm gonna be there, honestly, it takes just as much or more effort sometimes to like just move from booth to booth in the heat and stand in the sun and just like talk to people with the music, boom, boom, boom. If I'm gonna be there, I do rather do the thing I'm really good at and just be on the floor. And it's like it's simpler in a way,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like if I'm gonna make the trip, in the past it was worse because I was living like in the western side of the country. It's a long way to go, and I'm always like, it's a long way to go to like compete 2 days and like just do team and whatever. Not as far to go now, but I still keep the same mentality. Whatever.
Yeah.
The guys can carry me.
Yeah, that's the thing as well, because I think Jason isn't doing individual, so he'll be fresh. Just put everything onto him.
Yeah, he's not. I don't know about Jeff, and I don't know if they've announced anything, so I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah. So Wodapalooza, then, have you decided like what you're going to do beyond that? Because obviously, I mean, we assume the Open, and we've kind of been told the Open somewhere around like end of February, March, whatever. Have you decided? Are you still deciding, or have you already decided like what are you going to do? Because you have the option of doing the Open or not doing the Open. Then we have Will's World Fitness
project. Yeah,
project is also kind of being talked about. Being, there's be a couple of things on next year, and you can do either, or maybe you can do both, whatever. Like, have you put much thought into that kind of stuff yet?
I'm starting to now. I feel like I haven't honestly yet. Like, I think I'm trying to do one thing at a time. Like after we got back from Europe, which was a gong show, then it's like I'm right back into the move, and that's a gong show. And then as soon as that's done, I got to do my single parenting thing for 2 weeks, and that's gonna be a gong show. And then it's Christmas, and then maybe by January I'll be able to have some time to think. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, who knows? Maybe by January, CrossFit will have some information for us.
What information would you like? Like, what do you feel is missing?
I think when and where and who the live competitions are is pretty important.
I can tell you
And
that.
well, it doesn't matter. Like they should be telling us.
Yeah.
And if they don't have the open dates yet, I haven't paid that much attention.
I think they do. I kind of fudging that there. I can't remember the dates. It's somewhere around mid to late February, like 20 something around there somewhere.
Yeah, so that's just normal then, I guess. That's what I
Yeah.
would assume. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure.
So I kind of thought, like,
No.
from the last time I spoke to you at the PFA stuff and that, and the conversations that you were looking to have with CrossFit and stuff, I kind of would have assumed, going by that, I'm definitely not doing the open. Like, I kind of assumed that that's the way it was going to go. When, I mean, if you look at, say, the 3 demands of the PFA, you could argue that none of them were really met the way that you would have wanted them to be, I guess. So then I kind of assumed, like, all right, I'm guessing then maybe they're not going to do the open. Like, anyone who felt strongly about it from your side, like, do you feel pressure to be like firmly on one side or the other when it comes to the open and the game season and that kind of stuff, having been kind of forward facing with the PFA up to now?
Not totally. Like I think the stance in general from the PFA, I mean, candidly, they didn't meet any of those demands. And I would argue not even close. It's pretty disappointing. There's no other way to put it. But I think that mostly what the PFA wants is for athletes to feel like they have some support. So the reality of it is just like, if people feel like the only way for them to financially succeed or be able to make it as an athlete is to do the CrossFit Games season, then that's what they should do. And the PFA will support those athletes in any way that they can. And try to continue to engage with CrossFit, who clearly has no interest in engaging with us. But I would say that beyond that, like opportunities like the World Fitness Project, or what Loud and Live does with Wodapalooza events, and other really strong brands that run big, successful competitions that are well run, like we're just going to try to continue to reach out to them and work with them and create bigger and better opportunities that exist outside of the game season. Because like the problem is there's like this Stockholm syndrome a little bit, that everybody's like, oh well, it's the only game in town, like it's the only way to compete as an athlete is to do the game season, and that's just becoming less and less true. And I think that the more people can see that, maybe the bigger possibility there is that either CrossFit's going to have to at some point engage with athletes if they want to engage with the sports side, I would say. And they may not. When if that's the case, then sweet. Then maybe these other things like World Fitness Project, like Wodapalooza, as that stuff just takes off in a different direction and starts to be the like prevailing force in like the sport side of fitness. And that could just be what it looks like, and that's totally fine. And they're just like, then that's where we'll put our energy, and we'll try to just direct athletes in that kind of direction. Hey, have you considered these options? Because these are also really valuable opportunities. So I don't know. There's a very good chance that I take that route, I would say. I don't think I see a lot of value in competing in the CrossFit Games season for myself at this point.
Is there not like historical value to it, as in like the fact that you've done it, that you're familiar with it, that regardless of what goes on during the games, like say over the last 6 years, the changes and stuff, that you've still been successful and you've still been at the top and you've still been in the the top whatever percent of athletes over that period of time, that there's a sense, would you not have a sense of, I should probably keep doing it because it works? Like, it's what your kind of brand or whatever is built on, is competing in that format.
That's the trap, all right. That's how they keep everybody in. But I think the reality is I could also say, well, I've also won Wodapalooza 3 times. I've won Rogue 2 times. I've been extremely successful outside of the game season, perhaps more so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. And like I said, I'm not like making a decision here now, but you know, I'm definitely looking at the options. And if I'm looking at it from if I'm 24 and I'm trying to plan my season, what I would probably do is I'd hedge my bets. I would probably dip into both seasons because I don't think there's currently exclusivity between them. So I would just do as many competitions as I could. I'd kind of like, yeah, CrossFit season's low drag anyways. I can do it at home. I'll do the open. Everything's online. Who cares? Um, if I'm me and I'm 35, like I don't want to do a bunch of extra competitions in the year. I just like I don't think it's good for me. I think that's part of what maybe caught up to me this year is just competing a little too much. And you know, I can't rebound from injuries the way I maybe used to. So I have to load manage a little more than I used to. And so if that's the case, I may have to make decisions about like, hey, I can't do both. If I do one, where's my energy best spent? And candidly, I have no interest in competing online. I just don't.
Yeah.
Um, it means nothing to me. It means very little to anybody who competes at a high level. I think it's a joke. So I would pursue opportunities that allow me to compete live against my peers and have like fun, engaging opportunities for sponsors, for fans, for things like that. And I would pursue the options that allow me to do that the most frequently. If
Yeah.
I got to compete for 6 months to touch one competition floor in the game season, it's pretty bad.
Have you spoken to like Will and those guys about that World Fitness Project yet?
I've had some chats with Will off and on. You know, he's around. Like he was at Rogue, he was at the games. Like he's been working with Brooke and people in the back, so he's in the back all the time. So I've known Will forever. So we've chatted a little bit about it. I have a decent idea of what their structure is going to look like, and the question is always like, how well can people execute on a vision, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of people can say all kinds of things, and then if it's done the way I think that they envision it, it can be amazing. But you know, that's the question, right? Is can that be done the way that they say? And I think personally, I hope it can because I think it would be a really good opportunity for a lot of athletes.
It's hard as well because, you know, we talk about the unknown kind of answers and the things that we don't know about the game season, but like all the scenarios seem to be, apart from like say Wodapalooza, we know when it is, where it is and stuff, and those kind of one-off events. But like the World Fitness Project, like there's been a logo put up and then there's kind of rumors, say from our side. And I know from a lot of the athletes who haven't been in touch, that's all they know too. And then what they've been told, say third party or second hand or whatever. And then it's the same with the game season where there's kind of like, oh, apparently it's this and it might be that and whatever. And it's kind of getting to the stage, like you say, you've got, you know, after a couple of weeks, it's Christmas and then it's January. And then like, well, do we know what's going on with the season? It is a hard position for the athletes to be in, the ones who maybe haven't been contacted by that project and who are thinking like, well, I want to do the games, but I want to know what this other thing is too. And I can't decide until I know what both of them are. And now, as I sit here in December, I don't know what either of them are. I just see a logo and I see dates and I see it could be 30 for the games. And that's all I really know. So it's like the kind of criticism of the games could be leveled at the others too, where it's kind of like, we don't actually know what anybody's doing. And we only have whatever, 6 months until we're going to be in a high gear.
Yeah, I think the you know secrecy is probably the advantage of any new project over the you know the hegemonic group that's been dominating the space. So I don't think there's any benefit to CrossFit Games being cagey about their information. But I think for any group who's trying to get a jump or create something new, it's actually beneficial. Man, I think it's kind of refreshing that people can finally keep a fucking secret. I'm getting pretty tired of all the leaky boats in this fucking ocean, but
I'd say I know as much about that project as I know about the games. I'd say I have a similar amount of information, a similar amount of like, I know vague dates, I know vague venues, I know vague events, for both. So I'd say it's probably leakier than you maybe think it is, on both sides.
Well, I'm glad you're not sharing.
I think if you tell one person, it's not a secret anymore. Like that's what's happened historically with the games. Is like one person is told who maybe doesn't need to be told, and then it's like they give a half piece of information to someone, and someone else gives them the other half piece of information, then they have it. And then it's the same with this. Like you get told half a thing by one person, and then you check it with someone else, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard that too." And then you're like, "All right, well that's confirmed." And like that's just how it goes. Like,
Yeah, I maybe have a different journalistic approach to confirmed information than I do, but I think the realities of those things, like I think that anybody who's like, if you're a competitor and you're like, oh man, I don't know, I'm like a middle of the pack guy, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Only taking 30 of the games maybe really affects me. If you're like Adler, like who gives a shit? You're just
yeah,
like, go swing your dick around, who cares? Um, but if you're really concerned about it, like, I don't know, sign up for the open, and then if that $20 buys you peace of mind, and assuming it's still $20 and they haven't hiked the price up on that, like most things, um, then that buys you time too. Like you do the open, you engage with your gym, you do whatever, you do it at home, who cares? You're in the system, and then by the time you have to make a decision about your actual season, come the like online semis or their live events, what is it, like it's March, April, like you've got a little bit more time. So like whatever, do the open. Do the open
yeah,
like you've done every year, and like there's no difference. And then if you decide by April that you like the look of this other thing and you want to throw your hat in there, then do that. I don't think I don't think there should be like weird. I don't want athletes to eat each other. Like I don't want it to be like, oh, you did the open and like how can you support CrossFit, and this other group being like, oh, like how can you turn your back and blah blah blah. Oh, like it's like just, I don't know, like different people live different lives, right? Like if I lived your life exactly like you, then I would think just like you and I'd be you. And so like everybody has to make decisions based on their context that feels right to them and whatever. Like if you just like make a decision and live with it and be like, hey, it might be different, and then you might change your mind halfway, and that's fine too. Like just like, or you might do the year and be like, ah man, actually that game season was crappy, or oh, this World Fitness project really didn't jump off the way I hoped it would, and then you just go back. Like I think it's
yeah.
worth trying something new, or giving it a chance if something new looks like it can be appealing. I don't think we should turn our noses up to a newcomer, but just because it's new and flashy, like doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna like be the best thing either, right? Like I think it's just the way it works. Like there are a lot of really great competitions that we know run outside of the game season. Like it can be done. It can be done extremely well. And that's kind of what we've been saying for a long time as athletes is like, why hasn't this system evolved past this like really boxed in CrossFit game season? And like everything is like, there's like this off season, but it's all these competitions that are like, why are they considered off season?
Yeah.
Um, and like how has this not become like some kind of continuous season? And I think that this is now an attempt to sort of make that happen in some way. So I don't know, I think there's going to be some cool stuff. Like whatever happens, it's going to be a very interesting season. I hope it doesn't, like everything these days, polarize people to like an aggressive degree. But I don't know. I'm just like, I'm too tired to argue with people about it anymore. I'm just like, whatever, man. Do what you think you need to do. I'll be over here. I'll exercise for a little more and then I'll retire, and you guys can yell at me if you want, and that's fine.
What was that? Was it Keanu Reeves who said that he's gotten to a point where he just doesn't argue with people? So if someone says 2 + 2 is 5, he just goes, "Yeah, cool."
You're right. Yeah.
um, what about then? Do you think those competitions will change their systems in that, like, say, Wodapalooza, Rogue, especially like those kind of events, pick their invitees based off the game's finishing place? Like, will they have to adjust then and say, oh, okay, well, we had the game's finishing place, but oh shit, these 6 people who probably would have potentially finished in the top 10 didn't go. So do we include them, or like, do you think they'll have to change the way they do things?
Probably, yeah. Wouldn't it be sweet if we had a world ranking system?
Use like a Defiant method or something.
I think there's ways around it for sure. Like, I think the other reality of that thing is probably a certain amount of just discretion is going to be involved with it, and people will have to live with it. Like, you might not agree necessarily with who gets invited discretionally sometimes, but like, it's not your competition, and maybe that just has to be fine. Like, if Rogue's just like, yeah, but we're going to invite Matt Fraser because, like, then you kind of just have to be like, sure, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
that sucks. I guess I'll do the qualifier. Rogue has an independent point system. It does take into account the games. It also takes into account other major competitions. So maybe they just wrap in some of these other new events. Other people could use their system. I think that their system, heavily weighs their competition. And other people may not choose to do that. But, there's ways to make it work for sure. So I just like, I think that's getting into the minutia of, like, I don't think that's super important. At the end of the day, it's like there's certain people you could invite, and like if Laura doesn't do the game season, and then you invite Laura Horvath, like, who's gonna be like, oh, that's bullshit? Like, no one's gonna argue with that. Like, it gets muddy when you're down to like 20th. But like, if people are like, if the invites are going to people that are like, oh yeah, there's pretty decent consensus that that's a top 10 competitor even, like, yeah, honestly, people aren't going to be that pissed about it. Like, if
Do you
you're
think
inviting someone who's like a perennial 18th place at the games, like the last 3 seasons, and then they're getting an invite and there's new people coming in, it's like, maybe now people are like, oh, I don't know, like, that person could have not got an invite, but still, maybe, who cares? Like, they could have.
Do you think, does it dilute, or would it potentially dilute the games and the history of the games of, the fittest on earth and that title, if you had, like, will there forevermore, if people do decide to go one way or the other and there's a bit of a split, forevermore will anyone who win the games, unless it's like Tia, have an asterisk beside them of like, oh, fittest on earth, but Laura didn't do it, or Jeff didn't do it, or Vellner didn't do it, or whatever? Like, will there always be that little thing from now on then?
Probably. I think that's like what it means when there's competitive leagues, right? Like, if you look at golf and like what happened with PGA and Live, and then they eventually unified again, but like, yeah, you could be like winning one tour, and then someone's like, yeah, but this other person on this other tour is like better than you.
Yeah.
Like, maybe, but I don't know. It definitely takes away some wind out of the fittest on earth moniker, but who cares, honestly? Like, there's enough controversy every year anyways. Like, to be honest, since the days, it's been the men's division, say, since the days of Matt winning, like, every year whoever won, there's been a bit of like, oh, but like, everybody's got an opinion on something anyways, and it's like that's, I don't think the athletes care as much about that as the media maybe does, or like the people trying to spin a story. Some people maybe, but like, I've played too much sports to be bothered. Like, I'm just like, yeah, you know what? You could be the better guy, you could be the better team, and some weekends it just ain't your weekend and you get your ass kicked. And like, that's the way it works. And like, it could be 9 times out of 10 you win, but sometimes you don't, and that was today. And like, that's just the way it works. That's the way every sport works. And that's why most sports have a lot of different, games or different tournaments or whatever. We just don't have as many touch points, and that's sort of maybe another reason why a tour type thing, or multiple touch points in a year that rewards consistency across many events, and not just like, hey, here's your one event and whoever winner take all for like the whole year. It might be like a more balanced approach, but again, there's nothing wrong with the way it's been done either. Like, it's a different way that this sport has been done, at least up to now. So like, I don't know. It's just like, it is like, I don't know. Sometimes you have a sweet lights out weekend and you just like, you crush it and you're walking on air, and sometimes you don't. So
there's also like, so I've also heard like Will has kind of announced his, he's kind of put a stake in the ground of like, yeah, we're doing this, and you're going to know about it in time, basically. And then there's also other kind of rumored events or leagues or ideas that are being talked about. I know I've kind of frequently heard that the PFA are going to do something, and I've frequently heard that someone else is going to do something. And then is there a danger of like too many things starting up and then diluting each other so much? Like, would it be better if everyone just said, all right, fuck it, Morad's got an idea, let's just go with him, and we'll put all our efforts towards that, and then maybe make a really good thing, rather than having 3 or 4 little things. Like, I know you mentioned the PGA and Live, that was 2 entities going side by side that eventually unified, versus you have the game season and then Wills, and then you got another one and another one and another one, and then they're all fighting for the same athletes and the same kind of events and the same kind of brands and the same audience and stuff. Does it get kind of tricky there?
I think there's risk. Like, I don't think our audience is big enough to divide a bunch of different ways. I think there's something to having competition make the product better. Like, all of a sudden, if you have even 2 entities that are competing, like, the service you're providing matters a little bit more. And you can't just like slap your clientele in the face over and over and they're going to keep walking back in. You got to actually provide a real service, or they're going to go to the guy next door. And so I think there is something to that. But yeah, you risk cannibalizing the athletes and everybody, and running out of interest, or just people being too divided and confused. Or even the consumer, like, how many people are gonna show up to 6 different CrossFit competitions, like, as a fan in a season, like, so if there's multiple stops coming all over the place, and I got to go to this tour and that tour and this, and it starts to be a bit of a heavy lift. So there is a sweet spot for it, for sure. We'll find out what that is. Like, the reality of it is, if the market's not big enough to support it, like, one or multiple of them will fail, and that's just like how it'll work. I do think it's worth, we communicate, and like, I think it's worth trying to put as much strength behind one as you can, if you want to have like a breakaway entity. So, we'll see what happens come January.
If the game season said, the way I understand it is, you'll have a choice of, you can do the online semi-final or you can go to an event. And if they said, okay, you can go to any event, are you in a stage of your season now where you're like, all right, North America? Or would you be like, fuck it, I'm going to Torian, I want to see what all the fuss is about. Like, let's go for a big swing.
I wish I could, but I think I just, because of family and commitments at home, I don't think I could.
Yeah.
So I'd probably stay close and convenient. I can do, I can support that every now and then, but I think if I didn't have to, and it was like, hey, you can choose between Ottawa or, like, Melbourne, I'd be like, if I came home and was like, I'm thinking about Melbourne, I'd get like a swift kick in the head. So,
well, you went away for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right before Christmas. I mean, it's only fair, give and take.
Yeah. Well, then I'm gonna go away for Wodapalooza, and like, I get mine. It's fine. I think the reality too is Michelle's been on mat leave for the last season, pretty much. Ethan was born in February, so she came to semis in California. She came to Tier Cup. She came to the games. She came to Rogue. Like, she's traveled a lot with the kids already, and now we're like, no more travel with the kids for a bit. And so the next couple, I'm probably going by myself, which usually means like I'm in and out. Like, I get there, I line up, I compete, I come home like ASAP. So I'm not like going on a holiday. So it's nice. It's like, it's easy. You don't enjoy travel the same way once you have kids. You get that solo travel days, and you're like, oh, this is a treat.
When you walk into an airport on your own and you're like,
yeah,
wow.
you feel like that panic, like patting your pockets. Am I missing something?
Yeah. You check your hand, like, why is no one holding my hand?
Why is this so easy? This is so smooth. But yeah, so I think that I'll be doing a couple of those this year, and I think it's just that's the stage of life. Like, I'm gonna hustle out and hustle back, and you know I've done a few nice long overseas trips, and they're awesome. But I think I'm shaping up for a year of a little less of that if I can help it.
You know, when CrossFit came out with when they said the investigation was over, I was going to say the results of the investigation. When they said the investigation was over, and they came out with their kind of recommendations or the things that the steps they were putting in place themselves. Within that, there was like an CrossFit's Athlete Council. How was that received by you guys, like by the PFA? Was that like just like a little sack tap or a full on slap in the face? Like, how was that kind of received?
I don't know. I think it sounds kind of shitty, but like, I don't think we were expecting much more than that. Like, what they said after 3 months, they could have said after 2 days. There was nothing in that statement, as far as I'm concerned, that made any difference at all or made any indication that they were going to change anything in any way. Internal Advisory Council of Athletes, they've done that 3 times now, and they've all been disbanded within like 6 months. It's just like, it's nothing new. The irony was pretty high. The fact that we had just 2 days before voted in a new board, had a broad membership based vote, and then they're like, we want to have an athlete board voted on by athletes. We're like, we literally just did this, like just did it, and like posted it. We're public about it. It was just like, really, you do? Great idea. So it just, I think it shows that they have clearly no interest in engaging with the PFA in any way. They won't even say our name. They won't type it. They won't acknowledge it in any way. Which I think is not by accident. And I think it's just like, I don't know. At this point, we're just kind of like, great. We talked to all of our athletes, which is like 100 athletes. And we're like, hey, if anybody reaches out to you from CrossFit and like asks you about this thing, just direct them to the board that you already voted for. And then like, if enough people keep going, oh, you want an athlete board? Well, like there is one. And if everybody keeps pointing at it, then it's kind of hard to ignore. I think the biggest difference is that our membership is based on individuals. And probably what CrossFit will say is they want representation from many different divisions, which is fair enough. And I think that that's where they're going to try to differ. I'd be curious to see who they want to allow to vote, because I think that's where it gets really hairy. Like, a lot of their statements they made only really pertain to athletes who are at the games, which is now only 60 athletes in the individual division. So if you're saying, hey, anybody who signs up for the Open, you can vote for which athletes you want in, it means that you're having like hundreds of thousands, maybe, people vote for representation, which means you can get who knows in this board that are voting on decisions or having their voices heard on decisions that only affect 60 people. And like,
Yeah.
our membership is based on people who are likely to be in those 60. So it sort of like pushes out, or it makes the people who have the who actually have a real interest in what these issues are, it kind of forces them into a minority if they do that. So their voices become a minority on the problems that directly affect them, which is, I think, a problem. So it'd be interesting to see how they want to address that. I don't know what kind of timeline they're looking at for creating this. It's, they haven't really given any information about who can vote, how they're going to run it, when they're going to do it. So I don't know. It sounds like I don't know. To be honest, it sounds like a whole lot of nothing.
Have they ever responded, either like privately or publicly or written or spoken, since whenever that was, like end of August or whatever, when you guys made your demands? Have they ever like acknowledged them? Like, have they like these have been received with thanks, email sent back, or anything at all? Or has it just been like total stone face ignore?
Publicly, or
anywhere? Like,
we've had some communication with like Dom.
Okay.
And, yeah.
So So they they received them with, well, maybe not with thanks, but they received them. But did they ever say anything after, when that, like, did they ever go to you guys, say, before that announcement, whatever, 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, and say, we're going to make this announcement, here's what's going to be the announcement? Or did you see it when we saw it?
We heard about it like 24 hours before, and I think prior to, you know, many weeks before, because initially I think their timeline they gave for the investigation was much shorter than what it ended up being. But they had said, we had some correspondence about like, hey, are we going to get any kind of heads up on any of this before it comes out publicly? And they basically just said no. They're like, you'll find out when everybody finds out.
Hmm. Were you surprised by the pushback you guys got, and like the kind of dragging that you got after those demands and stuff?
Not really. I mean, I'm not like, I know what some people think, and I know that their minds will never be changed. And it's, it is what it is. I think the reality that I, try to think of is like most people don't like everybody hasn't lived our experience either, right? Like they're not in the back at the games, and so they can think what they're entitled to think what they want to think. But like, no offense if I don't take it that seriously, because I don't think you know what you're talking about. Like, you're talking about people that you've maybe met once or not at all. And you just like, I think you think you know, but you don't know. And I think if people always want more information than we're giving, and if we don't give it, it's because we don't have it. And like, no offense, but you're not entitled to it. This doesn't concern a lot of those people. Like, we're trying to represent, athletes competing at an elite level, and those are the people that we have a responsibility to. And I'm not going to sit around and share their stories without their permission, or the part of that. I think the duty of the board and stuff is when we make some statements like that, like, you got to have some armor. And because like, it's the internet, it's full of
Yeah.
vitriol and malevolence, and people are just waiting, guns cocked, ready to fucking fire at you. And I'm fine. Like, I'm a 35-year-old dude. If Steven from Oklahoma wants to just rain down his hate on me, like, I don't give a shit, man. Like, I'm not even, it's fine. Like, you can hate me all you want, and I'll be fine. Like, I'm good. I got a life. But the other thing that people forget is, like, look at some of the young women in our sport that just, like, the internet is eating them up. They're burning out. They're like, they can't handle some of what goes on without this stuff added on top of it. And then, like, you want us to share our stories about like how somebody was like affected directly by certain things. It's like, absolutely fucking not. So you can go rain bullets on them? Like, no way. Like, you want to aim at somebody, like, aim at us. I'm a big boy, I can handle it. But like, part of it is to protect some of the membership athletes who are just like, frankly, need it more than I do. Uh and so, I think we expect it every time. And the more controversial the statement, like, the more you expect it, and we know where it's coming from, and that's fine. Like, I'm not going to change my values because some random person on the internet wants to hate me for it. Like, that's just like, it comes with the territory a little bit. I think when you become any kind of a public figure in some way, like, people feel entitled to just like shoot at you like that. And I think, I don't know, it's hard to resist the urge to fight back sometimes.
That's the
But
thing. I think that's what I'd find really hard is like, I would spin the guns round on Stephen from Oklahoma. I wouldn't be able to just be like, all right, cool, man. I don't have that Keanu Reeves, like, I'm willing to lose an argument. I just don't have it. Like,
oh man, Pedro, I don't either. That's the hardest part of my day. I don't read them anymore because it's just like, I'll I want to. I spend a lot of time like talking shit to people on a lacrosse floor, and like, there's some people that I'm like, I could chew you up and spit you out and you wouldn't know what fucking happened. Like, but it's not, it's just like, I don't know. It's when you argue on the internet, like, everybody loses. It's just like, you waste your
yeah,
time.
there is like, you
Nobody
you reply
changes
to
their
a message and
mind.
you're like, there, I've won it. And then you get another message back, and then it's like 4 hours later, you're like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah,
this
nobody
isn't.
changes their mind. Like, nobody's whatever. So I think it's like, you try to do the odd like podcast or put a statement out that allows people to at least see where or why you're coming up to the decisions you are, and
Mm,
hopefully that helps them at least understand. You don't have to agree with me. Like, you don't have to agree with some of the stances that athletes have. I certainly don't with a lot of people, but like, even people that I don't agree with, I still support what they're doing in some ways. It's like, it's fine. You don't have to hate people because you disagree with them over one thing, or like, you don't have to tell them like, you got me. It's like, all right, like, dude, whatever, man. Like, so Yeah, I mean, I think we expect a certain amount of it. Part of it, you try to predict a little bit of like what are people going to latch onto, and sometimes it's surprising what they do and what they kind of just totally miss. Um, and so I don't know. It comes with the gig. I'm not that
Mm.
worried about it. I try to be adult about it more than some people, I think.
Um, Burning on page this question, so I'll ask it. If you could do things over strategy wise, either as an athlete or with CrossFit politics, would you do anything differently? I'm sure you do a lot of things differently as an athlete, I guess. As in, oh, I shouldn't have let my plate roll across the floor, or I shouldn't have fallen from the cargo net, that kind of stuff.
No, I stand by those ones. Yeah, I would have gone unbroken on everything. I don't know, not really. Like maybe it's a hard question to answer. Like if I had time to sit there and dissect it, maybe, but I don't know. There's no point in looking backwards. You try to figure out what the next move is and make the best decisions you can in the current climate. But everything's changing all the time, so it doesn't matter. Like, you think you have the right decision for what you could have made, and like I said, you never know what people are gonna really grip onto either. Like, you go,
I mean, like Lucy says, that plate roll is iconic. Like, if you didn't have that, if you didn't
yeah,
have the
right.
fall from the
Then
cargo net, who
who even
knows?
am I?
It's your
But
whole career is built on it.
yeah, like you think you're like, oh, I make this other decision, and then things would be better, and like just maybe it steers in a slightly different direction, and then you just have a different batch of problems and a different batch of solutions and whatever. So I don't know. I think I've never been big on regrets. You kind of roll forward like the plate.
Um, did you get any death threats or anything after that PFA thing? Like any that actually seemed like, oh, that's a legitimate feeling one. That's not like a fuck you one. That's this guy actually could potentially try and kill me.
No, no, not really. I don't think so anyway. Um,
Just like
I don't
you're a
know.
piece
I,
of
I
shit,
feel
like that
like,
kind of stuff.
yeah, or you get a lot of like, used to be a fan, unfollowed, and then you're like, okay, like, awesome.
Please.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, like you're like, okay, cool. Like, I don't know, like there's a lot of just shit like that, or like, or people just DM you to tell you directly what their opinion is on like whatever, like, oh, this statement, da da da, like, all right, like, great. And then I don't know, like, but oh, you don't represent me, and it's like you're right, I don't. Like you made quarterfinals this year. I don't know, like it's just like I like I don't know I don't know what to say. It's like you don't want to. I'm not like trying to be a dick, but it's just like yeah, people. I don't think have they sometimes like zoom in on the wrong stuff and they like lose the perspective of what we were actually trying to say. And it's just like, and if you try to, I'm not going to answer every message and be like, well, actually, like it's just like I don't have the time, man. And I wish I did, because I honestly think if I could just like have a conversation with someone and be like, hey, let's have a pint and I'll talk to you about it, they'd leave and be like, ah, fuck, you made a lot of good points. And you're like, yeah, like I'm a reasonable dude. I'm just like, you disagree with me on something. That's awesome. Like, I'm sure we would get along in a lot of ways, or maybe not, and we'd still go on living. It'd be just fine.
I was watching Ricky Gervais was on Stick to Football there last week, and he was saying that his first kind of realization of how kind of false like internet hate is was he had put out a tweet or something, and then someone tweeted him back and called him like a piece of shit, and like, oh, I hope you die and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, geez, like, and this is kind of early days. And then he clicked like the messages or whatever from the person, and that was the most recent one. But all the ones before that were like, really love your stuff, man, you're amazing. And it was basically just like they weren't getting a response from any of the other kinds. So it was just like, I'm gonna tell him I hope he
Try a
dies.
different approach.
Yeah, he might reply to that one. And he was just like, that was the moment I realized that just it's all nonsense. Like it's just pointless. And like once you realize it's fake, he was like, once I realized it was fake, I was able to detach myself from it. And now I just don't care what anybody says on the internet because it's not my brother or my friend or whatever. So I just don't care. But yeah, I'm not there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I care what people think, but it's like, I don't know. You gotta look out for yourself. And I think
Yeah.
you're like I said before, like you're like mental health and sanity can seriously take a hit if you're spending a lot of time in those comment sections and DMs and whatever. It's like just save yourself. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think the PFA is asking for anything out of control, to be honest. I think that the reaction to a lot of that stuff was something of an overreaction. And I do think, not to sound a little bit petty, maybe, yeah, whatever, I'm here now. Like, it's a bit of a vindication to have, like, at the time, everyone be like, oh, well, how can you say all these things without the results of the investigation? Like, gotta wait for the investigation, gotta whatever. And we were like, look, we know these guys, they're not going to tell us anything. We've dealt with them for a long time. The only way to try to push the issue is to get ahead of it and try to force them to say or do something to have any meaningful effect, because they will wait until everyone forgets. And then 3 months later, double the time that they said it would take, they put out a statement that says nothing. And then the next day, put up a post about the new season to just wash out the news cycle. And then here we are. Next season, 2025, are we signing up for the Open? It's like, it was entirely predictable, and we predicted it, and everybody hated us for it. And then now we're here being like, look, it's exactly what we said. And then now it's like, anyway, that's
It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat, though. Maybe they weren't going to do that, and then you guys said it, and they were like, "Oh fuck, that's a good idea."
I don't know. It's like, I don't know. That's just sort of how, and I think that there's a little bit of obviously bias, that I think sometimes when I see the things that they do, I read into it a specific way because I think a certain way. But I look at that and I'm like, no, I think posting those two things back to back after months of silence was entirely intentional. I think that's not a new playbook. That exists all over the place in politics and whatever. I think it was probably the right move for them, but it wasn't. It was obvious. Like, and people like everywhere caught it. Like, everybody in the comments were like, "Oh, like this wasn't slick," and like it was like. So I think when that happened, I feel like I did creep some comments for a little bit, and it put me at ease a little bit to see that a lot of the, at least whoever was engaged in the comment sections were kind of feeling a little bit like, yeesh, this wasn't what we were hoping for. So I don't know. Who knows what that means? I still think the best solution would be that if CrossFit could just learn to work with people and we could all move forward and skip together into the rainbows and sunset, it would be sweet. It's hard, and it's harder and harder to envision that future. But like, I like competing in fitness and CrossFit, and I'm going to find a way to do it no matter what for at least a little longer.
Joe, I just realized, so we built this shed, this garage, like during the summer, and I got a heater put in. And I remember when I was buying the heater, the guy was like, "How big is the room?" And I was explaining it to him, and he's like, "You're going to need 2 of them." And I was like, "I'm not fucking buying 2 heaters. Like, for the amount of time I'm going to be in there, I should have bought 2. Like, it's so fucking cold." Like,
I hope you're sitting by it at least.
No, well, I mean, I'm reasonably close, and I can see like that kind of what do you call it, like mirage heat coming off it, the waves. I can see that, but it's like it seems to be just staying in that located area, like not spreading throughout the room. I'm gonna let you go because you're probably similar in your car. I'll see you in Miami. I actually think I'm kind of following Jason around a bit for the team thing, so I'll probably see a good bit of you. Cool. Thanks for coming on. Congrats on your new home, and yeah, good luck with whatever you decide to do, and sure, we'll see you in Miami anyway.
Yeah, you'll still see me around lots. I'll go pick up my kid, go do some Christmas decorating.
Nice. Enjoy. Good luck with your single parenting.